I think we're seeing very much that this has moved from a protest to a kind of pre-revolutionary mode, really. So I think to call it a protest now is probably devaluing it a little bit. I think the regime's pretty much losing their battle, so we're in a very different phase of the movement at the moment.
Right now it's 6 minutes past 6. Let's start in Iran, where hundreds of people are feared to have been killed as the regime cracks down on protesters. Security forces appear to have opened fire repeatedly on opponents, and that has left medical hospitals, medical facilities overrun. That is under the cover of this nationwide internet and phone blackout. President Trump said last night the US stands ready to help without elaborating on exactly how. Well, with us now is Piers Zangana from United for Mashed. It's an international group who advocate for the protesters and the freedoms of Iranians. He's based in London. Piers, good morning.
Good morning.
It is clearly challenging to get up-to-date information considering this blackout that's been in place since Thursday now. But tell us, what information have you received over the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, it's very tricky to get comms and information out of Iran at the moment. There is a total digital blackout. I think there is Starlink access in Iran at the moment. So for people who do have the device, they're able to kind of use that. But it is very limited, and obviously it's it's illegal in Iran to have this. So it's quite hard to verify information. As I think your report said earlier as well, we have had reports of a number of killings overnight as well. So I think, again, numbers are unverified, but we're looking at maybe 100 to 200 people have been killed. These are, semi-official figures. So you'll, make what you will of that in terms of the true numbers. But I think we're seeing I think we're seeing very much that this has moved from, a protest to a kind of pre-revolutionary mode, really. So I think to call it a protest now is probably devaluing it a little bit. I think the regime's pretty much losing their battle, so we're in a very different phase of the movement at the moment.
Can you give us an idea of the sort of scale of the extent to which the discontent, which means people are prepared to go out and demonstrate in the way they have been, which is now, we believe, in every region of the country?
Yeah, I mean, this is very it's very different this time around. I think we've seen obviously protests in Iran in the past, and I think it's different for two main reasons, really. Number one, I think people are what's very different to previous events is that people are rallying behind Prince Reza Pahlavi. I'm sure you've heard of all the kind of reports. The former crown prince of Iran. So there is and he's very much kind of orchestrating a lot of what's happening on the ground. So I think we saw in the last 2 nights, he's actually called for people to come out at a certain point in the evening, and they've all, it's kind of swelled the numbers, and people have kind of listened to that call. So I think the difference this time around is certainly through the movement and leadership of and the popularity, I guess, of Reza Pahlavi, that people are behaving very differently and have a bit more kind of courageous in terms of what they're doing, and have had the courage to come out a bit more.
So you think they're emboldened because at this time there may be a sort of figurehead for the opposition?
Yes, exactly that. And I think people, look, it's very difficult to be able to determine who is popular and who isn't in Iran. There's no kind of opinion polling that's particularly kind of valid there. So, but I think the call, if anybody was in any doubt about his popularity in Iran, the call a couple of nights ago for people to come out at a certain point kind of almost proved that, because they all came out at the point that he suggested. So there was that, but I think also very significantly, I think this time round, the positive noises coming out of the Trump administration has really actually helped. It's very, very different to what we've seen in the past, where so in 2009 when the protests happened and Iranians were coming out on the streets and shouting Obama, Obama, Yaba or not Yaba, which effectively means Obama, either you're with them or you're with us. That all felt very, very, there was radio silence from Washington at the time, and Iranian people felt very, very alone. So the positive noises coming out of the Trump administration are really helping as well. I think Iranian people are feeling a bit more confident that there are eyes on Iran, and we're not alone in this. So I think that's quite a major shift, really.
Yeah, Donald Trump has said we're ready to help, but hasn't elaborated really at all on what that help would look like. You think that's helpful enough as a statement right now?
I do, yes, and I think it's massively helpful. I think because I think Iranian people have felt pretty alone in their battle against the regime for almost 5 decades. So having this just as I say, the narrative shifted slightly. I think people are a bit more kind of positive about that. I think also, as we talked about earlier, with Prince Reza Pahlavi, I think there's a bit more kind of order to the protests at the moment. I mean, there is, it's almost structured in the sense that 2 nights ago the call was put out for people to come out onto the streets, which they did. I think he's now called for an extension of this civil kind of disobedience. He's called on people in the oil and gas industries, in the transportation industry, in the energy sectors to strike effectively. So I think we're seeing a bit more of a kind of structure behind this, and a bit more kind of external eyes on Iran as well, which is really, really important.
It very much sounds as though you believe this is going to escalate further in terms of the action we're seeing from, well, people who absolutely are, it seems in many cases, prepared to risk their lives to protest here. Are you nervous of what comes next?
Look, I mean, the challenge is, I think the one question that has to be answered is Iran ready for this? And the answer is absolutely yes. I think what we are, and again, this is largely geared around what we're hearing on the ground from people as well. I think people want a secular, democratic Iran. I mean, there's no question about that. And through a number of kind of people doing an incredible amount of work already to get us prepared to be in that position. So I think again we've talked about this, but with Prince Reza Pahlavi, I think there's a view that he would be the figurehead to lead a transition government in Iran as soon as the revolution is over the line. And I think that I think the key part in all of this is the team that he then forms as part of that transition government. Clearly, there's lots of hugely, Iranian people are hugely passionate, and they're fiercely kind of proud, and super smart, and there are plenty of people within Iran, as well as those in the kind of diaspora who will come together and form, hopefully, what will be a kind of a transition government that will help smooth the process from this kind of fanatical Islamic Republic that we've had to a more kind of secular democratic Iran, as I spoke about.
OK, Piers, thank you very much. Piers Zangana, human rights advocate, member of United for Massa. And the clear sentiment there, Gito, I think, is that Piers, anyway, believes that this protest movement, which he's calling sort of pre-revolutionary, is going to be successful rather than stifled by what has been an extremely aggressive and pretty frightening crackdown from the regime.
Yeah, he certainly did sound like that. And, whereas I won't dare to dream, if you like. I just keep looking back at the stats from 2022, 550 people killed. We don't know what's happening fully at the moment, but I don't think we've got to that stage. 20,000 people detained. But the regime lived on. And so I still have, a massive amount of hesitation. And also when Donald Trump says, we will help you move towards freedom, in capital letters, of course, I don't know what that means and whether he really will do something that is practically useful, or we all just voyeuristically watching this. And the end is, as it has been in the past with most oppressive regimes. Who knows?
I mean, the Times is reporting that the Trump administration, they'd had preliminary discussions about how to carry out an attack on Iran if needed, but actually then no sort of military equipment or personnel have been moved. So that sort of very much feels as though it's in the theory stage of things rather than anything more material.